Somebody built 200 of these, ran them for 60 years, then closed the doors, walked out, and never came back. This is Leetonia, Ohio, a small town of under 2,000 people, close to the border with Pennsylvania. The first 2 episodes in this series were about individuals: a blacksmith who spent years carving a political statement in secret, a bricklayer who carved his grief in sandstone over 2 years. Both of them were one person with a chisel doing something that had no reason to exist other than they needed it to. This one is different. This one is about what happens when industry comes to a place, builds something extraordinary, employs an entire town, and then one day just stops. So what is coke, and what is a coke oven? First off, it's not the kind you might be thinking. I know that's what my mom was thinking the first time we came out here. Coke, the industrial kind, is what you get when you take coal, seal it inside of one of these brick domes, and burn it at an extremely high temperature for 2 to 3 days straight. You're driving off the impurities, the sulfur, the gases, all the stuff that make coal burn dirty and inconsistently. What's left behind is almost pure carbon. It burns hotter than coal, hot enough to smelt iron and steel reliably. You can't build industrial America without coke. The railroads, the bridges, the steel frames inside every skyscraper going up in New York and Chicago from the 1870s onward. All of that needed iron and steel. All of that needed coke. And a meaningful chunk of that coke came from valleys like this one. Each one of these domes, about 12 feet across, 6 feet high, they held about 2 to 3 tons of coal each. At full operation, with all 200 running, this site was producing 250 tons of coke a day. And when everything was running at night, the valley glowed. The reddish light pouring out from between the hills gave the whole operation its name, Cherry Valley. The site was founded in 1865 by an Irish businessman named William Lee, who had discovered rich deposits of coal, ore, and limestone under the soil here. He bought up over 600 acres, brought in investors, incorporated the Leetonia Coal and Iron Company, and by 1866, the ovens were built and running. The company grew up fast. By the early 1860s, they had close to 100 ovens running with blast furnaces to match, and the town of Leetonia had grown up around it. At peak, the Cherry Valley Iron Works employed almost the entire village. Irish and German immigrants came specifically for this work. This place existed because of these ovens. Then came 1873. A chain of bank failures triggered what was known as the Long Depression, which, to be clear, was not the Great Depression. That one comes later. This was a different economic collapse, sparked partly by the aftermath of the Franco-Prussian War in Europe and a series of catastrophic investments in American railroad expansion. When the banks went, they took a lot of the industry with them. The Leetonia Coal and Iron Company went bankrupt in 1873. 1/3 of the village lost its income essentially overnight. The company reorganized under one of the original investors, Jacob Chamberlain, and came back as the Cherry Valley Iron and Coal Company. He doubled the operation, added more ovens, more blast furnaces, and more capacity. The site changed hands and names several more times over the following decades. By 1906, it was the United Iron and Steel Company, ran by a man named Daniel Rhodes Hanna. His father was Mark Hanna. Mark Hanna was the most powerful political operator in America at the turn of the 20th century. He made his money from coal and iron, the same industries that built this valley. And in 1896, he ran the most expensive presidential campaign in American history up to that point, raising $3.5 million to put William McKinley in the White House. He outspent the opposition by somewhere between 5 and 12 to 1. He pioneered the model of going directly to the industrialists and corporations for campaign money, not just asking for donations, making a business case. He reportedly told potential donors that Bryan would win if nothing happened, and that it was worth figuring out exactly how much that outcome was going to cost them. And then he would suggest a number and take a check. His son Daniel was running the site in 1906. The company eventually became the M.A. Hanna Company in 1920, named for Mark, who by then had been dead for 16 years. The family held it until the Depression finally finished what the Long Depression had started. The ovens went cold in 1930, and the site sat untouched for 50 years. A local pharmacist named John Roos led a community effort to save it in the early 1980s. They worked with village officials, the property owners, and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to get the site donated to the village and cleaned up. It was listed on the National Register for Historic Places in 1993. The Ohio Historical Society added a marker in 1999. The design is pretty much the same for every oven. A brick dome, 12 feet across, 6 feet high. The arched opening at the front is where the coke was discharged after cooking. There's a hole at the top for loading the coal in from above. A rail track ran along the ridge above the ovens. Workers would push the coal cars along it, shovel the fuel down through the top holes. 2 to 3 tons per oven, and then seal it up and let it cook for a couple of days. Then pull the coke out the front, load it onto the cars, bound for blast furnaces. The coal staining on the brickwork inside is still there, still black after 90 years. There's a photograph that exists from around 1885 of the workers at this site. A group of men posed in front of the wheelbarrows. The wheelbarrows were how they moved the hot coke out from the front of the ovens after cooking. Manual labor in front of structures that were running at temperatures high enough to smelt iron. It takes about 2,600 bricks to floor one of these, and another 4,200 for the dome. Multiply that by 200 and you're talking about 1.4 million bricks, all laid by hand before the site was complete. That's before the blast furnaces, before the rail infrastructure above. You can see how differently they've held up. Some of these are nearly intact. The brickwork still tight, the dome complete, the arch is clean. Some have partially collapsed, and a few have been entirely swallowed by the hillside. The forest genuinely does not care about the National Register of Historic Places. It's just doing what forests do. And what forests do, given enough time, is take everything back. These ovens have been sitting here since 1930. The trees growing through them are probably 70, 80 years old. In another century, some of these will be indistinguishable from the landscape around them. The brick will still be there, somewhere under the roots, but the forest will have closed up over the top. Most people drive straight past Leetonia on their way somewhere else. Those who do come usually come just for a hike, not the history. If you do want to go deeper into the history behind this one, I put together a companion article over at my website, thebeardedvagabond.com. Links in the description. There's more to Ohio to cover, and there's something considerably bigger coming. 20 days in Scotland. Well, I think we've upgraded it to like 24 at this point. Ancient ruins, dark history, and places that make this place look recent. Subscribe if you don't want to miss it. I'm Rex. That's Artemis. I'll see you on the next one.